One fateful evening when Mark returned home from work, he found the front door ajar, and a sense of unease settled in his soul. Running inside, he saw a scene that will forever be etched in his memory. Emily, his beloved wife, was encased in a passionate embrace with his best friend John. The sight tore at Mark's heart, leaving him broken and betrayed. Unable to contain his pain, Mark lunged at Emily and John in a fit of rage. The world around him collapsed, and he saw the love he held so dear crumble before his eyes. The pain was unbearable, and Mark's broken heart was filled with a seething anger that consumed him. In the days that followed, Mark sank into a dark abyss of despair. He tried to make sense of the betrayal and find solace in his turmoil. Emily, blinded by her own desires, tried to apologize and salvage their relationship, but the damage was done. Trust had been irreparably damaged, and the once unbreakable bond between them had dissolved. As the days turned into weeks, and then months, Mark's grief turned into a burning desire for revenge. He vowed to make Emily and John suffer as he himself had suffered, to inflict on them the same pain they had inflicted on him. With a twisted sense of justice, he set out on a journey of revenge that would change the course of their lives forever. Mark carefully planned his revenge, gathered evidence of their betrayal, and exposed their treachery to friends, family, and the entire community. He relished their public humiliation, savored their anguish as their lives crumbled around them. His actions were driven by a toxic combination of anger, heartache, and a thirst for retribution. Emily and John, once unaware of the consequences of their actions, now found themselves isolated and despised. Their lives became a living hell as they faced the judgment and scorn of those they once called friends. The weight of guilt pressed down on them, choking their souls and leaving only regret. But even as he took his revenge, Mark realized that his actions had not brought him the closure he so desperately sought. Instead, he was haunted by memories of the lost love that had once defined his existence. The bitterness and anger that had consumed him now turned inward, leaving him empty and broken. Ultimately, the tragic story of Mark, Emily, and John serves as a cautionary tale about the destructive power of betrayal and revenge. It reminds us that no matter how justified our actions may seem in the moment, they can never truly heal the wounds of a broken heart. And while our thirst for revenge may satisfy our hunger for justice for a moment, it ultimately leaves us empty and alone. When the flames of revenge gripped Mark's heart, he couldn't help but revel in the suffering he caused. The once quiet and humble man turned into a vengeful force, driven by an unquenchable thirst for retribution. Mark had gone beyond mere humiliation. No, he wanted to hurt Emily and John as much as possible. He began by sabotaging their careers, spreading rumors, and planting false evidence that tarnished their professional reputations. He'd enjoyed their downfall, realizing they were now feeling the same despair he was. But Mark's twisted mind craved even more. He wanted to see them broken, emotionally and physically. He devised a plan to push them to the edge, to rob them of all remnants of happiness. Late one night, Mark broke into Emily and John's home, leaving behind subtle reminders of their affair. He laid out intimate photos, love letters, and other evidence for them to discover. The shock and horror that engulfed them when they came across these reminders of their betrayal was music to Mark's ears. But Mark's gloating knew no bounds. He wanted to see their suffering firsthand. He began to stalk them, lurking in the shadows, watching their every move. He savored the fear that gripped them, the paranoia that consumed them every moment. And then one fateful night, Mark decided to take his revenge to the darkest depths. He kidnapped Emily and John, imprisoning them in a secluded spot away from prying eyes. He savored their terror, the helplessness that emanated from their trembling bodies. For days on end, Mark subjected them to unspeakable horrors. He tortured them physically and psychologically, tearing them apart. Their screams echoed through the desolate neighborhood, a symphony of pain orchestrated by Mark himself. But even in the depths of their suffering, Emily and John clung to a shred of hope. They didn't let Mark's darkness consume them completely. With their last strength, they devised a plan to escape from their tormentor. Emily, fighting her weakened body and the overwhelming fear that threatened to consume her, performed a daring act and freed herself from her shackles. She freed John, and together they made their way through the darkness, driven only by the desire to survive. Through luck and desperation, Emily and John managed to escape Mark's grasp and find their way back to civilization. They were battered, broken, and scarred, but they were alive. Their bodies and souls bore the imprints of their ordeal, a constant reminder of the horrors they had endured. And what of Mark, the organizer of their suffering? His terror has come to an end. The authorities got wind of his twisted actions, and he was apprehended, and his evil plans crumbled to dust. After his escape, Emily and John had a long and difficult road to recovery. They sought help from therapists, trying to rebuild their shattered minds and heal the wounds that had permanently scarred their souls. They vowed never to let the darkness of their past define their future. As Emily and John tried to rebuild their shattered lives, they found solace in each other's arms. Their shared trauma helped them create an unbreakable bond that transcended the pain and betrayal of their past. Together, they vowed to leave the darkness behind and begin a new life full of love and forgiveness. But the wounds inflicted by Mark's sadistic actions were deep. Nightmares tormented them in their sleep, and the scars on their bodies were a constant reminder of the horrors they had endured. They turned to therapists, support groups, and whatever means necessary to heal their scarred souls. However, the effects of their ordeal extended far beyond their personal lives. The media picked up on this sensationalized story, turning it into a tabloid frenzy. Emily and John became unwitting symbols of tragedy and scandal, their faces flashing across newspaper pages and television screens. As public fascination grew, so did judgment. People questioned their actions, wondering how they could forgive each other and move on. They were seen as weak, pandering to their own misery, and whispers of doubt and judgment followed them everywhere. But Emily and John refused to let society define their path to healing. They knew that forgiveness was a powerful force that could free them from the shackles of the past. They chose to rise above judgment by choosing their own path to redemption. In the face of adversity, they became advocates for trauma survivors, using their story to shed light on the grim realities many face behind closed doors. They have organized support groups, spoken at conferences, and shared their experiences with those who have gone through similar trials. Their message of resilience and forgiveness resonated with many people trapped in their own suffering. Emily and John became beacons of hope, guiding others to healing and providing a glimmer of light in the darkest of times. As the years passed, Emily and John found peace within themselves. The scars, both physical and emotional, became reminders of their strength rather than symbolizing their past. They continued to live a life filled with love, compassion, and an unwavering belief in the power of forgiveness. What about Mark, the torturer who started this tragic story? Locked in a cold and dark prison cell, he was left to face the consequences of his unspeakable actions. His mind, once consumed with revenge, was now tormented by remorse and regret. Alone, Mark realized the depth of his vice. He realized that true strength lay not in destroying others, but in the ability to grow, change, and seek redemption. He embarked on a journey of introspection, desperate to find a glimmer of humanity in his tortured soul. Through therapy and introspection, Mark began to gradually unravel the twisted beliefs that fueled his actions. He asked for forgiveness from those he had wronged, knowing full well that it would never be granted. But he knew he had to acknowledge his past and make amends, even if he had to face the consequences of his actions to do so. As Emily and John continued their healing journey, they were drawn to a small, picturesque town in the countryside. This town, known for its mysterious history and supernatural lore, offered them the opportunity to start their lives anew and leave their painful past behind. What they didn't know was that this seemingly idyllic little town held secrets far darker than they could have imagined. As they settled into their new home, strange phenomena began to occur to them: whispers in the night, eerie footsteps echoing in the empty hallways, objects moving on their own. At first they did not pay much attention to these phenomena, believing them to be simply a product of their traumatized consciousness. But as the phenomena intensified, they could no longer ignore the chilling reality. They delved into the history of the city to learn about betrayal, revenge, and restless spirits. Driven by their own experiences and a desire to get to the bottom of things, Emily and John set out on a journey to uncover the town's dark secrets. They consulted local historians, dug through dusty archives, and talked to residents who had long kept the town's secrets. Their investigation led them to a forgotten cemetery on the outskirts of town, where they came across a forgotten grave. The name carved on the weathered headstone sent shivers down their spines. Mark was the name of their tormentor. When they dug deeper, they discovered that Mark had once been a prominent figure in the city, known for his anger and lust for power. Legend had it that he had made a pact with the dark forces, trading his soul for immortality and the ability to control the spirits haunting the city. Driven by curiosity and a desire to understand the situation, Emily and John sought the help of a local medium known for her connection to the spirit world. Under her guidance, they performed a ritual to summon Mark's troubled soul, hoping to finally meet the ghost of his past. To their surprise, the medium's abilities turned out to be real. Mark's spirit materialized before them in the form of a grotesque and tormented figure. He begged for forgiveness, confessing the depth of his remorse and the pain eating away at his soul. As Emily and John listened to Mark's remorse, they faced a choice: hold their grudges and continue down the path of revenge, or accept forgiveness and free themselves from the chains of their past. Showing unimaginable compassion, Emily and John forgave Mark. They saw in his tormented spirit a reflection of their own pain and realized that forgiveness could break the cycle. With tears in their eyes, they bid farewell to Mark's tormented soul, freeing him from his eternal torment. The city, once shrouded in darkness, began to heal. The paranormal phenomena stopped, and the townspeople felt at peace once again. Emily and John, who became heroes instead of victims, dedicated their lives to helping others find forgiveness and free themselves from the shackles of their own past. So the story of Mark, Emily, and John took an unexpected turn, from a story of revenge and suffering to one of redemption and forgiveness. It serves as a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable darkness, there is always a glimmer of light waiting to guide us toward healing and deliverance.